J Mack from Syracuse, New York, man. Came all the way out to see my Colorado Buffs.
What channel do you watch that brought you out here?
The pregame show.
Never watched the college game till last season when Coach Prime came to Colorado. And I am in Colorado at Folsom Field. I am the Colorado Buffaloes auntie from Texas. Sweet treat.
Hey, I've been following the pregame show. It's all about let's go Buffs.
Away from Texas, yes sir. Watch you every single day. Nobody lays it down like Uncle Neely and the pregame show.
Neely, pregame show behind the scenes of everything. And why does he get that kind of access? Why does he get that kind of access? Because trust is involved. You would never get the kind of access you desire unless there's trust and relationship. You're trying to put your up on game.
Welcome to the pregame breakdown. I'm your host, Phillip Dukes, aka Dukes D Scoop, and this show is brought to you by the Pregame Show Network via Uncle Neely. My guy, so appreciative of the opportunity. Let's dive right in. The Utah Utes are the exact inverse of the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Why you say that, Dukes? Well, last week when Colorado played Texas Tech, they were going up against the number one offense in the Big 12, who inversely or conversely had the very last defense in the Big 12. Well, Utah is the exact opposite. Utah is second to last in offense in the Big 12 with 22.6 points a game, but they're first in the Big 12 defensively scoring when they come because they're only giving up 17.1 points a game. So when you look at a team that's only giving up 17 points a game, but they don't score that many points, you wonder how are they doing that? How are they so dominant defensively without getting help from the offense? And that's because they play complementary football via time of possession. Utah is first in the Big 12 when it comes to time of possession. So even though they're not scoring a lot, they're giving the defense rest, and you're seeing fresh legs defensively because they hold the ball a long time. What Utah likes to do offensively is to spread you out and then tighten you up the gut. What I mean by that is on the perimeter, you're going to see wide receivers. You're going to see Dorian Singer out wide. Dorian Singer is somebody that you want. I'm really looking forward to seeing Singer and Travis Hunter match up one-on-one. And he can really, any of the corners can really match up against him, but they're going to have the same issue because he's a guy who's really crafty. He's a veteran guy. He loves to run the post, and he runs it really deceptively to where he makes it look like a fly, and he'll hit you real quick straight up and he'll towards the middle of the field trying to split that goal post, why they call it a post. And then, but when you get towards the hash marker, you get to the middle of the field, Utah likes to use a lot of tight ends. It's not surprising to see them in 13 personnel sometimes, one running back, three tight ends. They run a lot of 12. Sometimes they run a little bit of 11 when, in passing situations, but they love to keep their tight ends in the game. Now, Colorado is catching a bit of a break because this isn't the same Utah team that started the season. They lost their quarterback, Cam Rising. They lost their backup quarterback who had the valiant effort last week against BYU, Mr. Love. He's out for the season now. They lost Money Parks, a really, really explosive wide receiver who made those tight ends and Singer that much more dangerous because he could stretch the field. He was also a phenomenal kick returner when he's also out for the season. And then Brant Keithy, who stepped up big time, NFL-type tight end. Last week had a nasty touchdown on a double move against BYU. Well, now he's injured and he's out for the season. So you got an injured team, a team that's been ravaged by injuries. Colorado has been fairly healthy. Now, they have had their share of health issues, but Colorado overall is a deeper team because of what they did last year, everything they brought in. They're a deeper team, so they're more well-equipped to handle some of those injuries. So when you look at what Utah wants to do, they use those tight ends to get mismatches on the second level against linebackers and safeties because they want to run the ball. They got a guy by the name of Mekhi Bernard, who's a phenomenal running back. He goes by about 6 feet, 207 pounds, really explosive, but he's tough as nails. And he's also a really good athlete. So we talk about two-way athletes a lot, especially in the Colorado space, when you look at what Travis Hunter is doing, when you look at what Rock was able to do. But this guy also played, so in the 2021 Rose Bowl, the starting running back for Utah, Mekhi Bernard, also led them in tackles. He played both ways that game. He played some cornerback in a pinch, and he went off. He led the team in tackles and rushing yards. So he's a guy that if there is an injury situation, you can see him go to the defensive side of the ball. You could even probably see him if you had to have him as a kick returner, he can do that as well. Also, I will get to who I really like as a kick returner that they replaced Money Parks with a little bit later when I talk about the defense. But when you talk about his running style and what they like to do, they like to hit you up the seam. They like to have the wide receiver out wide. They like to have Singer out there. And they really like to get those tight ends who run really good routes. And all of their tight ends can run routes. And they're pretty good blockers as well. So there's a lot of multiplicity there where you can't key in on what they're doing based on the personnel. So they'll run out 3 tight ends and then run a mesh concept with the 2 widest tight ends and put a double move on a safety as the cornerbacks bite on the mesh. So I want us to focus on the double move because in Keithy's absence, they're going to employ this guy named Landon King. He's a transfer from Auburn, and Colorado Buffalo fans may remember a couple of cycles ago during the transfer portal, this tight end, Landon King, took a visit to Colorado. A lot of people thought he was going, and he picked the Utes at the last minute. Well, Landon King goes about 6'5". He's gotten a lot bigger, but he's one of those high point specialists. So when you get in the red zone, he's somebody that you want to focus on because he can go up and get it. So, and he's also a former wide receiver. He played wide receiver at Auburn, is converted. He was a tight end, converted to wide receiver, back to tight end. But he's a really good route runner. And like I said, Colorado loves to employ those double routes when it comes to the tight ends. So you'll see the sluggo, the slant and go. You'll see the post corner, run the post and then run it back to the corner. You'll see the out and up. So this is a very important game for Silman Craig and Shiloh to make sure that they're grounded. They don't take the cheese, what we call it, taking the cheese on the double move. And for those that don't know, when you take the cheese, that means you get caught in the trap. That means you see it there, the first route, you shoot the first route, and they beat you on the second one. And if you look at how Utah scored all season, when they run those double moves to the tight ends, they've been very successful. So this is one game where you want to see them take a step back and just come up and tackle. Because I don't think that Utah is explosive enough to just run what's on the route tree and beat this secondary. They're going to have to use some deception, and they're going to have to beat you with the RPO system. Now, when it comes to the RPO, they'll delay with the handoff just a tad to kind of throw you off, and then they'll let Bernard get out in space, or he can run it up the gut. See, I really like him as a running back. His running style is reminiscent of Tyus Brooks last week. He's a little longer, a little leaner. His stride is a little longer, and I won't say more explosive, but there is a certain level of twitch to his game that you may not have seen last week. So let's talk about the defense. Utah defensively has no, before I get there, I do want to talk about Utah's offensive line. We'll get to the defense in a second. They've only given up 17 sacks, right? Which is fairly good, middle of the pack for the Big 12. But they haven't seen a defensive line like Colorado. Colorado's defensive line has gotten better as more people have began to play, and they'll continue to get better, and they're going to keep getting better. And I think this will be the best defensive line they've seen all year, and I'm expecting the Colorado to really get after them, especially because this is one thing about it. When you can rush 4 and you got to keep those tight ends in the block, then that means you have so many opportunities to disguise your defense in the secondary when you can have 7 guys floating around, when you have Travis, when you have Preston, when you have Colton, when you have DJ floating around. Even Nakai got a pick last week. When they can get in those passing lanes, you have a backup quarterback who was just benched in Isaac Wilson, the little brother of Zach Wilson, who I believe now is with the Denver Broncos. You have a guy who's already been benched, who was a classic case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Isaac Wilson, when he's good, is really good. He shows a lot of the traits that his brother showed in order for him to be the number 3 draft pick. But when he's bad, he makes bad decisions with the ball, and he'll put the ball in harm's way. And Colorado has such an opportunistic defense that's kind of what you want to see as long as you can get there with 4. And I think that Colorado will be able to get there with 4 because I'm not sure that Utah has seen a defensive line like this. I just wanted to make that point that matchup is going to be huge. Defensively, Utah is pretty doggone good. Actually, they're great. Number one in the Big 12. But they haven't seen Colorado, and they haven't seen Colorado at this point. You got to think, when we look at all of these numbers, you still got that 10-point stinker of a game that the offense put up against Nebraska before they figured out who they were. So when you take that, I guarantee you do the numbers, you take that game out, Colorado, if they're not leading, they're at least second in the Big 12. We take that one game out, fine. And you've got such a prolific offense that we've seen all year long. All of the receivers, the running back weapons that you have, 2 Heisman candidates in Shedeur and Travis. I mean, really, really, and probably one of the most unsung heroes on this offense is Jordan Seaton. A lot of people talk about him, but when you talk about how he's been so important to protecting Shedeur's blind side, you can't put too much value. I mean, literally, you cannot give enough praise to Jordan Seaton for the job he's done as a true freshman. Speaking of Jordan Seaton, he's going to have his hands full this weekend. Number 7 for Utah is a guy that you got to watch at all times. That is Van Fillinger, number 7. So he's third in the Big 12 with 6 sacks. He has 19 and a half for his career. He has 8 tackles for loss. And the stat that stood out the most to me about Fillinger was that as a defensive end, he has 5 pass breakups. That means he's being active and disruptive even when he isn't getting to the quarterback. He plays he's about 6'4", 260, so he plays some strong side defensive end. They will move him around a tad, and we'll talk about the movement on that defense. But this is the game that I'm so excited for Jordan Seaton, because he's got a senior guy, a guy with experience, a high motor guy, a guy who has has a ton of production over his career. Would have even more production if he didn't have the injuries that he's had. And he was actually rated pretty highly. I believe he was a 4-star prospect coming out of high school. But Jordan Seaton is different. Even though he's, in my terms, we would call him a baby because of how young he is. Man, if he's a baby, he's the biggest baby. The boss baby. Dog. For him to be 18, 19 years old, doing what he's doing, it's incredible. I feel like Jordan could probably go to the league this year if he was able. Like, Jordan is a ball player, and he ain't small, man. So I'm really excited for this matchup. So we can see him get to put his paws on somebody who's going to have some fight back. But I think this is one of those games where you say, yeah, Jordan can go up against anybody in the country. Because this guy, Van Fillinger, he could play for a lot of teams. If he went to the transfer portal, he would get a bag. But let's talk about what Utah likes to do defensively, which is disguise their coverages and disguise their blitzes. Very rarely do you see a guy show and actually blitz. They're dropping guys. They'll bring a guy. They'll bring a linebacker and drop an end. They'll bring an end, drop a backer. They'll drop the nose tackle. They'll drop anybody because their game is confusion. That's how they're manufacturing the sacks that they are getting. It's not that they're just beating you off the line. Now, Fillinger can, but outside of that, they're really manufacturing sacks through scheme. And when you go back and you look at that secondary, I would say that if I had to take my pick of any other secondary in the Big 12, totally as far as the cornerback room, this would probably be my second favorite room. And there's a guy by the name of Smith Snowden who's a nickelback, and he's explosive, he's a dog, and he can really play. What Shedeur is going to have to do this week is to make sure that he's looking off his reads. And I say that because he loves Snowden. When he's in zone, he loves to read the quarterback. And I think this is one of those games. Shedeur is so cool that when he looks you off, you don't even know you've been looked off. Like, he'll just look at you real quick. All right, I know I ain't going there. And he'll turn his head, and you'll think that he doesn't see you, and he saw you the whole time. He's going to throw it over your head. But Smith Snowden is one of those guys that you have to do that to because he's really good. And he's also good in the return game, which we'll talk about in a minute. But outside of that, do I think that Utah, even though they're only, and I'm giving them all their praise, bro, they ain't no match for this offense, dog. I ain't gonna cap you now, man. I'm doing all the breakdowns I can do. I'm doing all of the, the research, and I'm looking at it, and I'm breaking it down, and they can't beat Colorado, bro. Defensively, they're good, but they just don't have the manpower or the horses. The only way Colorado can get beat in this game is if they beat themselves. What I do want to see Colorado do is clean up the taunting penalties. And I think there's a lot of excitement in the game. And I think, like, it's a fun time. But just clean that up. You don't even want to give them a chance. Man, this is the game for Colorado to take the sledgehammer to the net. That's right. Uncle Neely the other day on You Tell Me on the Pregame Network, not so shameless plug. Uncle Neely came out and he said he wanted to see Colorado start fast. And he's absolutely right. This is the team. They're an injury-ravaged team. They're a team that you don't want to see hanging around. They're coming off a very emotional loss in a rivalry game to BYU. And they've been kind of handling their business against Colorado historically. So this is that get-back game. What my man say? That get-back yeah. This that get-back game. Go ahead and show the country, because now it's style point time. This offense needs to go ahead and take off this week. As soon as they come, if they hit the ground running, it's gonna be a long day. It's gonna be an early day and a long day. Last week against Texas Tech, what I really enjoyed seeing. Now, even though I just said I wanted them to start fast, I love seeing how the offense looks when they get clicking. Man, when they rolling, bro, they came out first 4 possessions, they may have had like 36 yards total. The next 4, they had 280. That second set of 4, if they can put that first, then the game's out of reach. And that's what you got to do. Because when that offense is rolling, when they're throwing the ball, when they're throwing the ball short and allowing Shedeur to have time, because now, so you throw the ball short to make the cornerbacks take a false step. So when they take that false step, when you're not throwing it short, and now they're beat deep, you can see Shedeur get his time, air it out. Shedeur throws such a pretty football. Man, it's like poetry in motion. And I think that's the best Colorado, when they use the pass game as an extension of the run to make sure they get Shedeur in rhythm. Then when he gets ready to go down the field, man, then you get Willie One Hand Shepherd. Yeah, man. Then you can throw it to one hand. You can throw it to LaJonte. I mean, you got so many options. And I just think that's the reason why Colorado, and my prediction, I got Colorado by 14. I'm going Colorado by 14. Let's go 35-21. I think they may score more than that, but I go 35-21. And I would like to see them run the ball a little bit more to kind of saw the game away after they go ahead and just punch him in the mouth early. But yeah, that's my time. Let me know what you think needs to happen in order for Colorado to beat up on the Utah Utes. I'm your host, Phillip Dukes, a.k.a. Dukes D Scoop. Check me out on Twitter and Instagram at Dukes D Scoop. All right, see y'all Saturday. Sure.
So where y'all from?
We up from Miami, Florida.
All the way from Miami.
All the way from Miami.
Appreciate y'all coming, man.
Hey, man, we love what you guys are doing, man. We want to support you in every way.
Appreciate your family.
And we're recruiting at home. Everything we see at home, we bring it this way.
My man.
You gotta believe. Dude, we've been believing since day one,
That's
dog.
why I gave it to
Remember
you.
back in Jackson State? We've been believing with you in the pregame show.